I'm sure you guys are beginning to get a little concerned for my sanity, considering the fact that I've made 2 Undertale videos recently, but because of the massive and incredible response of the first video, I figured I would go ahead and take another look at it. I didn't really expect to get anything from it. I just kind of went through, wanted to see if there was something else from the game that could be translated into D&D and learned from. And to my surprise, there was a lot. So I'm willing to make a series out of this if people want it. I'm not really planning on it, but hey, if you guys want it, let me know in the comments. But today we're talking about Toriel because I genuinely believe she is probably one of the best examples of how to intro to a campaign and introduce themes. So let's talk about the GOAT mod. Now, the reason I want to talk about Toriel is because she is a fantastic introduction on how to introduce a story and the themes that one will explore. When we first meet her, we realize that she is literally a tutorial. Get it? Tutorial, Toriel, haha. But she is what is considered to be your guardian. You run into this creature who tries to harm you and she saves you. And then she begins to teach you the mechanics of the game in a very meta sense, but also doesn't let you actually interact with anything. She constantly protects you, she constantly keeps you from being in too much danger, and eventually you kind of have to go out of your way to disobey her in order to genuinely learn any mechanics. Now that in itself is fascinating, but the reason that I want to talk about how this could be an incredible D&D encounter is because of what ends up happening with Toriel. See, she is a perfect representation of the themes that will be explored in the game, no matter how the player chooses to interact with her. Over the course of time, she's genuinely caring, genuinely compassionate, and gets the player to trust her. But she's so caring and so compassionate, of course, you can't help but wonder, should you trust her? And that is something that your players in a D&D campaign will do if they meet a genuinely nice NPC. Imagine you're going along and then in your very first encounter, you encounter this incredible enemy, but then you're saved by an NPC. Well, the first thing you're gonna wonder, of course, is why are they here? And as time goes on, you're gonna start to wonder what's going on. You're not just going to wonder about what's going on in game, you're gonna start wondering outside of game. Is this a DMPC? Is this supposed to be an ex machina machine that will constantly show up and save the party from TPKs? The party's gonna naturally be kind of concerned. Also, they're not gonna want to double cross if you have a history of being a double crossing DM. You don't want them to gain trust in the NPC and then betray them later, and so the players will be aware of that and potentially worried about it. The point is, the reaction to this type of NPC will be very similar to playing Undertale and playing D&D. There's a desire to want to get to know them because they're genuinely kind and helpful, but there's that feeling in the back of your head that something is wrong. And this gets confirmed in Undertale 2. Not necessarily that something's wrong, but that there was a reason to be concerned about her, because eventually it comes to light that she doesn't want you to leave. She doesn't want you to go explore and try to find your way back home. Instead, she tries to keep you trapped in her house. Now, it's not anything malicious, she's genuinely trying to protect you from the horrors outside, but she's not being honest about it. And as you start to follow her, she begins to get more and more aggressive and more hostile, telling you to go away, until eventually it leads to a confrontation. A very emotionally charged one, because she outright refuses to let you leave to the point where you have to fight her. And it's one of the first times you really get into a fight in the game. Yes, up to this point you have run into some random enemies and even fought a dummy, but this is the first time that you're really encountering something where there is some sort of genuine danger. Or at least it seems that way. See, as the fight goes on, if you continue to fight Toriel over and over again, eventually she just stops trying to hurt you. She is more powerful than you, that's just certain. But she starts trying to avoid harming you because she doesn't want to. And this is where I think it is so interesting as a D&D encounter, because Undertale really does have such strong roots in the same thing that D&D does. This idea that your decisions have consequences. How you choose to treat people will affect the story. D&D is a game about decisions and choices, and so is Undertale, And it honestly makes me wonder why these two haven't crossed over more. Again, probably because of the fan base, which I do want to talk about that real quick, by the way. I apologize for saying that the fan base was toxic in the past video. A lot of people corrected me and said that yes, while that was the case, it has moved on a little bit more, and I am proud of that. I haven't been a part of the fan base, so I wouldn't have been able to see that. On that note, I also said that Sans has determination and can see through timelines. He is a character who is known to have a certain amount of determination, which allows him to see into different timelines. Thanks for correcting me on that, guys. Like I said, it's been a very long time since I've actually interacted with Undertale, so I had some misinformation. That being said, we go back to this encounter, and it is so intense and so emotionally charged because she does not want to hurt you, but she refuses to get out of your way, and it teaches that there is going to be a time where you can have friends, but your morality will simply not allow you to interact with each other. There's going to be a confrontation, and there's no getting around that. And I really can't think of a more powerful D&D encounter to teach what's going to happen for the rest of the game. If you have an NPC who genuinely loves you, who genuinely wants to take care of you, but it's one of the first major fights you have with somebody you genuinely care about who doesn't want to harm you, but refuses to let you leave, that's going to teach something very important. That yes, while you can like people and love them and be friends with them, sometimes morality will simply clash against each other, and there's nothing you can do about that. Sometimes you have to face the problem head on, especially if it's a more powerful NPC, because the more powerful NPC is going to not want to harm the party, and so the party might start to exploit that, creating an even more emotionally resonant encounter. I really can't think of anything more interesting. And then we get to what happens if you actually take down Toriel. See, assuming you're not going one of the more extreme routes, which leads to different endings of the game, you have two options. You can either kill Toriel, which is what most people do because they don't realize there's another option, or you can eventually convince her to let you pass because you will not give up. Or there actually is a third option. You can get yourself killed, which obviously nothing happens, though you do get a very heartbreaking moment of seeing Toriel realize what she's done. That being said, it is a very, very strong possibility that you end up killing this NPC, or they end up killing you. And hopefully that doesn't happen because that'll derail a campaign quite a bit, but it still teaches a very important lesson to the players. Now, keep in mind, this should only be reserved for certain types of campaigns. It's not for every game. For campaigns that are very heavy and serious and have strong impact on morality and decision making and what the players do, this is a great encounter for that. But even so, introducing an NPC at the beginning of the game that is meant to show how the world works, I think is awesome. Because yes, it does give it a little bit of a video gamey tutorial vibe, but if you do it right, it won't come across that way. Instead, it'll come across as an excellent introduction into the world that they're about to explore. And you know what? Fiction, writing, movies, any type of storytelling media, if it's doing it well, will probably do something like this. Give the reader, whoever is imbibing the actual literature, a chance to understand how the world works and then go explore it. And that's exactly what this does. And so putting something like this in your games, I think is awesome, but it'll probably only work once or twice unless you're very, very talented at making this feel very organic. So I think it's an awesome idea and an excellent way to try and create an amazing encounter that introduces your players to the world. And if you want to hear more about Undertale and D&D, which weird that I've kind of gone down this route, but again, it kind of makes the most sense possible, I have a video right here. Go out and make the world your own.